The next problem I'm going to work for you is number 11, a word problem, which states an amount of money invested for 1 year in a savings account will earn $1,500. That same amount of money invested in a mini mall development will earn $6,500 interest in a year because the interest paid is 10% more than that paid by the savings account. So we want to find the rate of interest paid by each investment. So I'm looking for my R, the rate of interest that I'm going to earn. So first of all, what I know so far is that my principal is the same for both equations. So my principal for my first equation, where I'm solving um, for the savings account, is going to be the same as my principal for the second equation, where I'm solving from my investment in the mini mall. Okay, the other thing that I know is the same. Time for the first equation is the same as time for the second equation, which is 1. I don't really need to multiply by 1, so I'll leave that out when I write in my values on my equation. Time is 1. Multiplying by 1, doesn't affect anything. So for my first equation, I'm plugging in I equals PRT. My interest for that first one was 1,500, and that's going to equal principal 1 times rate. And then in my second equation, my interest is $6,500, and that's going to equal principal 2 times, and now I can't just put R because my two R's are not the same. So it's going to be the same as this R plus 10% or 0.10 because it told us in the problem that the rate on the 65 when they earned $6,500 was 10% more than the rate when they earned $1,500. So that tells me my rate for this equation is R plus 0.10, 10% changed to a decimal. So now I'm going to solve both of these equations for the value that's the same on both of these equations, and that value is my principal. Even though one says P1 and one says P2, I've stated up here that P1 and P2 are the same. So I'm going to divide by R here to get P alone. So P1 is equal to 1,500 divided by R. And here I'm going to divide by R plus 10% on both sides, which again gives me P2 is equal to 6,500 divided by R plus 0.10. That 0 looks a little funny over there. Okay, so now what we already know is that P1 is equal to P2. If these two are equal to each other, then I know that these two must also be equal to each other. If this is equal to P1, P1 is equal to P2, then this must be equal to this. So I'm going to rewrite that. I have 1,500 divided by R is equal to 6,500 divided by R plus 0.10. Now, this is a proportion problem which I can solve by cross multiplying. I get 6,500R is equal to 1,500R plus 150. I distributed 1,500 times R plus 0.10. So now I need to get my R's together. So I'm going to subtract 1,500R from both sides. And that gives me 5,000R is equal to 150. Divide by 5,000. I'm going to move up here since I'm running out of some space. When I divide by 5,000, I get R equals 0.03. So that's my rate, but it's in a decimal, so I need to change it to a percent because it asked us to find the rate of interest paid by each investment. So that becomes 3% is my rate. That's the rate for my first problem where I was investing the money in a savings account. So 3% equals the savings rate. And my rate for my mini mall investment, it told me was 10% higher than my rate in my savings. So that's going to be 13% 13%, and that's my mini-mall rate. So those two answer the question asked right here, which was find the rate of interest paid by each investment. 3% was the rate of interest paid by the savings, and 13% was the rate of interest in the mini mall investment. So again, the key thing you had to remember for this problem is that the principal was the same for both of them. P1 was equal to P2. The time was the same for both. I just left it out because multiplying by 1 doesn't affect your equation. If it were anything other than 1 year, I would have had to have that in here as well. And I would have divided through by it just like I did my rate. So I would have had to get my principal alone. The reason we wanted to get our principal alone on these two is because we said here, principal 1 equals principal 2. If they are equal to each other, so is whatever they are equal to. Principal 1 was equal to this, so therefore this was equal to principal 2. And that's how I could make that equation that had only the variable that I needed to solve for, which was the rate. And there you go.